So your kit has been designed to fit in an 8x8 inch or 20x20 centimetres. I bought this wooden frame from the range. They are on offer at the moment for £2.79. The reason why I went for wood is obviously then I can paint this. You can also buy these in white as well, but if you are wanting a different colour, I would stick to wood because it's quite difficult, not unless you use spray paint, to colour your frame. So the first stage is to take everything out. So we don't use the glass in this because some of the designs sit forward. And if we keep the glass on, it's completely up to you. I find that it sort of like gets a mirror effect like this. And it sort of like takes away from the print. So I never use the glass in any of these prints. So what you need to do is take out the inner, the back part and the frame, so you will have 3 pieces. So I've just taken everything out. That is my inner, my main frame and the back piece. Excuse this is for my, when I design your bits and pieces, just to make sure that everything fits. But I will be gluing onto this. Just make sure that your tab is upright, and we're going to start on this piece first. So this is the first part you will need to take out of your kit. This is the sort of below part, which is going to sit along here. Now I always design these for a few mil just out. That way if your frame is not quite square, everything will be sort of like sitting flat and you won't get any gaps on the side. Taking some PVA glue, this is clear, you can use normal PVA glue. As always, when I say with any of the bakes, Mod Podge might bubble up your work a lot more. So I would just stick with PVA glue. You can obviously use tacky glue as well, but what you might find with that, you can't sort of like spread it flat because it's quite thick. So my advice would be use PVA glue. Just pop some on the bottom there. And now with a paintbrush, you're just going to spread all your glue all the way along. Like I say, you will get a few mil out when your frame sits on this print, but we do trim all that off afterwards. So just make sure the whole thing is covered. And then what you're going to do is take your print, line it up to the bottom, push it up slightly. This will get covered as well with your inner. So if you have missed it and you haven't gone quite square, that's absolutely fine too. And then you can use the palm of your hand or like a spreader. We're just going to place this over the top. If your glue hasn't quite hit a corner like this, rather than sort of like squirt your glue from the edge, just take off your lid, dip your brush into your glue, lift this up and then just paint underneath. Just be careful when you do spread this. You don't want this on your print, because obviously it's only printed on cardstock. Spread all that flat. And then we are ready for the next piece. The next piece of the kit is this one with the table on. So we are going to obviously do everything 3D. This is now going to sit along the top. Again, you will have excess to cut off. It's just easier for me to do it that way. Like I say, just in case your prints are out. You're going to line this up now with this part here. So again, you'll have some overlap, only by a few mil. And the aim is just to get that join sitting together like this. So we're going to do the same method. I'm going to put all my PVA glue on there. Line this up with this line here. Like this. Spread it all flat with my hands. And then I'll be back. We now have the bottom part and the top part We obviously use this joint later on, so if you've missed a slight little gap, just try and push it up the best you can, but this will be hidden anyway. So now we're going to flip this way, and you will need to trim off all your excess around. As you can see, my frame is slightly out. So just go all the way around your edge, trimming off all the excess. Now you will need the square, which is sort of like brings up your frame. This is to go on the inside. And we're going to glue this right the way along our print. So this is now time to decide whether you're going to spray paint this, paint it. It just makes it easier to do it on this stage rather than trying to get your paintbrush on the inside and maybe paint on your print if you're anything like me. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this because I do want it, I think, blue. I have chosen this blue. It was part of a set from the range, but as you can see, it's sort of like an Alice blue, so I've gone for this one. So it's just acrylic paint. All you will need to do is just paint the inside. This part on the top gets covered, so you don't need to paint that. And the bottom part gets covered as well by your main frame. So I'm just going to take my acrylic paint, just use a paintbrush, and just paint along the inside of this frame. Once you have painted all the way along, you will now need to pop this inside your frame along with your main frame. I did go over with some of this glitter, which I got from the range as well. I just thought it sort of like blended everything out. So I've gone all the way on the inside and now popped on my frame. So I don't need to paint this frame right now because obviously it sits away from all my print. And then I'll paint this afterwards. However, while you've got your paint out and your glitter, you might want to do everything all together. So the reason we now need to pop in this insert is because this is part of your next kit, which is the door. So we want a 3D effect of the door, which is going to sit in front of this area here. So if we didn't put this frame on, we wouldn't be able to sit it right the way along here. So you need to find this print in your kit. You will also need to find 2 of these sticks as well. Just flip you down on the table so you can see what I'm doing. So with this large lollipop stick, the first thing you need to do is just cut off with your scissors this rounded edge. We are then going to place this stick on the print. Make a mark at the bottom where our stick ends with a pen. And then we need to snip that off as well. So when you do snip these lollipop sticks, just make sure you are holding it between your thumb and finger, squeezing it really tight. That will stop your wood from splitting. You will then need to do the same for the other part as well. You should now have 2 lollipop sticks that look like this. So now we're going to use our PVA glue. We're going to lay this flat and we're going to glue on our sticks up to the edge of our print. Then I'm going to glue that one on the other side. Next, you're going to fold where the stick ends on your cardstock. Just fold it over like this. And then do the same on the other side. Once you pick that up, let me flip it that way. We have now formed a 3D door. So this door is going to sit above this door here. Let me just lift you up. So this door that we've just built is going to sit in this area here. So again, just make sure that all your frame is square before you start gluing anything in. We're going to push that inside our frame where it naturally sits. Like this. Once you are happy with the placement, we're just going to now strengthen up the back. So I'm just going to flap these over. I'm going to take the smaller lollipop stick, just trim off the rounded edge. Again, squeeze that between your thumb and finger. That will stop your wood from splitting. These don't have to be perfect. It's just to support the inside, stop the sort of like front being quite flappy. Just mark with a ruler where this one ends. So basically we're just doing like a little shelf inside. So the easiest way really is to flop that over. Measure that up with this stick here. Make a mark with your pen down there, and then you need to do this twice. Once you've cut both sticks, these do not have to be, you know, perfectly straight. Even if you get them at an angle, it's absolutely fine. Like I say, it just supports the whole structure. So what we want to do now is just flop this open. We will not be putting any glue on the inside where it sticks, because that way you might find sort of like a ripple on your print. So we're just going to use tacky glue or PVA glue, just run it along these edges. That way you can pop that into your frame like this. Oh, let me just pick it up so you can see. Squeeze both flaps together and just let that adhere to itself. Then you're going to do exactly the same with the other one, just poking that inside. Next, we're going to glue this in this corner here, covering this door. So as that sits in there, you will find this now should line up with your full line at the top, because obviously we're going to put a top on this later on. We don't want to use any tacky glue down this edge here. We're just using tacky glue along this part and this part. Once my tacky glue is on, I'm going to line it up. I'm not going to put any tacky glue at the bottom either, because what you will find is all your tacky glue will come out. It doesn't need it, because obviously we're going to support it by the shelf as well. So just pop it along this edge and this edge. Pop it into your frame, push it up, and then hold that in place. So now we're going to concentrate on this table here and these little shelves here. I've tried to zoom you in as much as I can without going out of focus. So this table here, what you need to find now is the thinner lollipop sticks. This is just some offcut that I had earlier, but obviously there's going to be enough sticks in this kit to do this part as well. Taking the offcut or a new stick in your kit, what I'm going to do is just lay this flat onto this table, using the length as a guide, and can you see it's sort of like gone over. We don't need any rounded edges on this, so I'm just going to use my pen, mark that where the table ends, oops, and then I'm going to trim that off with some scissors. Again, make sure that you squeeze it between your thumb and finger. That will stop your wood splitting. Once you have the rough length, you will next find a little bit of frill inside your kit. How adorable is this? And now you need to plug in your glue gun for this part. With my glue gun, I'm going to run along the side, the front, and the other side. Once my glue is still wet, I'm going to now roll this over the top of my glue, like this. My frill is now glued onto my stick. You will find a few mil either side just to trim off. I've made this sort of lace part a little bit longer just to make it easier for you. So next I'm going to use my tacky glue, or you can use your PVA glue along this edge here. Find your table, and then we're going to adhere that to the front. So you might find it easier to lay your frame flat. I've just popped mine up just so you can see what I'm doing. So run your glue along there and adhere that to there. We have now created a 3D table. So next we're going to concentrate on these two little shelves here. So taking a smaller stick, you're going to trim off the rounded part again with your scissors. Again, just grip it between your thumb and finger. You're going to measure this up on this top shelf here. Mark that with a pen. Trim that off. And this part now should sit on this shelf here. And then you're going to repeat the same process by taking your other stick, line it up with this bottom, so it's not this middle part, it's the bottom part. Mark that with your pen and trim that off as well. We now have 2 shelves, so now is, if you want in these a different colour, now's the time to paint these before we tacky glue these on. I'm going to keep mine sort of like bare wood. I think it's going to stand out a little bit more and match this frame, but it's completely up to you. So I have used tacky glue. As you can see, I've just gone along the edge with my paintbrush. You can obviously use PVA glue. It's just going to take a little bit longer to dry, that's all. So I'm going to sit that in line like this. You might have to hold it for a few seconds. Again, just keep your frame flat. Then I'm going to run some more tacky glue along the other shelf. If you've gone over like this, just take your finger and just wipe that off before you stick it down. That will stop all the overspill. That is then going to sit on this shelf here. So I'm going to keep my frame flat, wait for everything to dry, and then I'll be back. I'll just pop you on a shelf. It's going to be easier for you to see. So next we're going to concentrate on this table here. Now I did order some frill for this. It was far too big. So I've done an alternative, which we're going to do now. So in your kit you will find the larger lollipop stick. We use the smaller one for this bottom table. We are now going to bring this table further out by using this wider lollipop stick. So as always, we're going to trim off this rounded part here. You are then going to sit your flat edge onto this table, mark it with your pen to get the length, just like we did on this bottom part here. So just line up your stick, make a mark, and then trim that off as well. Once you have the length of your stick, you are now going to go into your kit and you will find some ribbon. So this is lemon. We're going to use our glue gun. We're going to glue along this edge here, along here, and along there. We're then going to place this ribbon, just give yourself a little bit of overlap at the back, just so you can cut off the excess rather than trying to sort of like we did in the previous step. You know, you don't want to be pulling it round. There will be a little bit of excess for you to cut off. So just give yourself a little bit of a lip, run your glue gun all the way around and attach that to your stick like this. Once you've glued on your frill, it should look something like this. Now we're going to flip this upside down. I'm going to move the camera down so you can see what I'm doing. And you're going to roughly take the middle and you're going to mark with a ruler 1/2 centimetre in and make a little dot. You're going to do exactly the same on this part, taking your middle, mark 1/2 centimetre in and then make another dot. So your dot should look something like this. So just take it from the edge like I said, get it as close as you can and mark it with a pen. Next in your kit you will find 2 little wooden dowels. Yes, these have been cut down to size, it saves you measuring it. So you'll find 2 of these, and now what we need to do is use our glue gun, pop them on these dots, and we're going to sit these on the top. This will just form like the 3D leg that comes out. So we want one on that side and one on that side. Obviously you might need to use quite a lot of glue for this, but you're not going to see it because obviously it's going to be on the underside. I'm going to show you, I've already done one. So what I'm going to do is blob my glue gun on this little dot here. So just form like a dome, like this. And then take your dowel and then just pop that on top of your dot. So don't worry, it might obviously feel wobbly. We do put a bottom on this once we got the other shelf on. So I thought it'd be easier to build this part now because then we can pop this to the side while it's drying. You should have like a little 3D table. So now again, you know, you might want to have painted these beforehand. It's completely up to you. It just depends how messy you are with painting. You know, if you're wanting it a different colour, and obviously you can paint the legs as well. So if you are wanting to paint, I would probably do it beforehand. If you've forgotten, it doesn't matter. Just sort of like lift your frill up, paint everything, flip everything down, and then let that dry. So the next part, let me just flip you back up, is we're going to separate these two layers because obviously we've gone underground and we're going above ground. So we're going to find this part here, which is your join, what we did at the beginning, and find two of your larger lollipop sticks. So these are going to sit along this edge here. So again, first of all, we're going to cut off this rounded edge. So once you've taken off this rounded edge here, this is just going to sit just roughly on here. I'm going to try and balance it so you can see what I'm doing, but I would obviously have your frame flat for this part. You will then need to cut off your other stick, so your other rounded part, just so it slots on the other side. We're going to layer these over the top, stretching them out until we get the full length of the frame. Let me flip you that way so you can see. So just make sure you push everything in. Make sure that your sticks go right the way along. And then what we're going to do is keep this pinched. You might want to just sort of, like, you don't have to cut this rounded edge, this part off, by the way. If, you know, you do struggle, you can always sort of like do a little mark like that. Just go back in, check it again, just to make sure. And then with our glue gun, now I've got my mark, I'm just going to lift that off, pop some of my glue gun underneath there, line that up to my little mark that I've done, and then attach these both sticks together. Once you've glued both your sticks together, you should now have a long stick that goes right the way along, just with a double layer here, which we're going to cover now. You will now need to find your grass. So this is a rough cut. I've made it a little bit wider again, so your stick, when it goes in, it'll be, you know, slightly over, as you can see. So this is quite messy when you start cutting this grass, so be prepared. You might want to cut this part over your bin. So let me just flip you down. So taking our glue gun, we're going to run our glue all the way along our stick. Let me just do that quickly. We're then going to place this on our grass. Pressing everything down. As you can see, it's dropping already. And then what you're going to do is take your scissors, trim off all this excess, so right to the edge, right to this edge, and along this part as well. So as we've got a double thickness, just to support the table that we're going to pop on shortly, I'm going to take some brown, dark brown acrylic paint. With a paintbrush, I'm just going to run just along this edge here. So it's only the front you need to cover. You don't have to worry about the sides or the back, because obviously that gets covered. So I'm just roughly going along this edge. I just wanted to show you quickly. So it will give sort of like a streak effect, which is what we want. It looks like tree bark. And then flip this upside down, and again, just give the inner part just a layer. You don't have to do this part. I just feel like once everything is glued, because obviously I am designing and building at the same time, I don't want to sort of having to go underneath with my paintbrush, especially if this is going to show later on. So I'm just going to sort of run my brush just over, just giving me the sort of like bark effect. Obviously, because it's wood, it will pick out some of the areas as well from your stick. So I'm just going to work all the way along, just sort of brushing it, and then I'm going to let that dry. So this is the effect it gives just by sort of like going over it with your brush. My paint is still a little bit wet. So now what we need to do, let me just move this out, is you don't have to glue the inner part. So no glue on this side, because what happens is when you start adding far too much glue and you start adding all these layers, your glue might spill out on your inside of your frame. So we're going to avoid that just by tapping some tacky glue. Let me just lift you up. Just on that edge there, and just on that edge there. So not inside the frame, but just on these little wooden sticks that we did earlier. So let me just get some tacky glue on there. I'm just going to jump in and show you what tacky glue I am using. This was from the range, it's Art Studio. It's not as strong as the more expensive stuff that I normally use, but I think it's going to do the job for this part that we need. So I've put my paintbrush in already. I'm going to tap this, just like we said a second ago, just on that edge there and just inside here. So I'm not going to run my tacky glue along here either, it's just this part. So next, while that's sort of like getting tacky, you can use your glue gun for this part because obviously it's quite thick and obviously we've got the grass in. Just be aware if you are using your glue gun, once you sit that on and press it down, do not go over any more than this bottom part of your lollipop stick, because when you press that on, what will happen is your glue may spill out the top, and with it being a glue gun, it is quite thick. So if you don't trust yourself in doing that, you can obviously use your tacky glue. It's just going to take a little bit longer to dry, and as I am filming this tutorial, I'm going to use my glue gun. Just before I add my glue, I'm going to run it along this edge, so no sides. I'm then going to sit that on the top of here, and I'm going to follow this line along where we did the print at the beginning. I'm then going to push that inside and flatten it down. So you've got a lot more play obviously with your tacky glue, because your glue will be quite slidey, if that makes sense. As soon as you adhere your stick to your print, you are not going to get it off. So you're going to make sure that it is square before you push it in. So again, keep your frame flat, go above, line it up and then pop it in. So I'm going to take my frame off here just to show you. My frame is now flat, just use my glue gun. So I'm going to go above my frame. Before I press this in, I'm just going to line that up there. Take that right the way along. Push that down to the tacky glue that we've just added. And make sure everything lines up so my shelf there we go. Sits flat like this. Sorry, there's a bit of delay in my speech there. I was concentrating. So that is now adhered. There is no way now you're going to pull that off. So like I said, use your tacky glue if you are, you know, not confident enough to do it in one go. If you've glued this on while your paint is still wet, or once it's up, you can see sort of like some little bits and pieces inside your grass where you've glued it. You can go along, take your paintbrush, dip it in whatever colour paint you've gone for, and just go over the top of that. So we have now done all that. So next we need to go back to the table. This is now going to sit on the top of here. So you might find, depending on how your shelf has gone, that you might just need a little bit of trimmage on each side of these legs, because what we're aiming for is just to get it on this part here. So I'm going to line up my table. I can see it's slightly too big. depending obviously on the shape of your frame as well, some of these frames are slightly out. So I'm going to roughly line that up to the top, and I'm just literally going to trim off just a few mil of my little table legs. Once you've measured everything up, next I'm going to use the same tacky glue that I used on this previous part. I'm just going to run it along here. Then with my glue gun, I'm just going to add a little blob on each bottom of these legs. I'm then going to line up my table to this top section here and adhere that to the back. So my glue gun is going to sink into this grass as well. If I was to use tacky glue on these bottom parts, it's going to take far too long to dry because obviously the grass is quite coarse. So I'm just going to adhere that there. My table is now in place. So when you start sort of like gluing anything onto your print, we haven't really done it so much, only for these shelves that we've gone through when you wipe it off. You might just need to take a cotton bud and just wipe off any excess glue. You will probably get a slight bit of glue. Just use a cotton bud and just wipe that off once you've pushed that on. That way it'll stop getting all your glue onto your print and make it a lot more neater. So this is as far as we've got, and now we're going to add some decoration. So we are going to add some decoration, but I'm jumping in because my shelves now I want in this colour. Like I said, I didn't know how I was going to design this because obviously I'm building it as we go. So I'm just going to use the same brown paint and paint these shelves. So if you've watched this video all the way along, which I would advise first, and then start building, you might want yours painted. It's going to make it a lot easier for you to paint these before you stick these on. So I'm just going to paint these in a dark brown. If you haven't watched this video all the way through and you're already up to this part, crafting along, I'm just going to show you how I would get my paint on my shelves as neat as I can. So I've just took a thin brush, flip your frame, then I'm just going to run this just along the back. So, if you're really neat at painting, then you can obviously do that while it's glued on. Some people might find it easier to do it this way, but I would advise to paint your sticks before you stick these on. So just to show you, I'm just running my brush just along that edge there. And then I'm going to just run it along either edge as well. So my shelves are now dry, everything is into place, and now we need to add all the extras. So in your kit you will find all the bits and pieces that we're going to be using next. I've just flipped you down on my craft table. So first of all, you need to find this pink bottle. There will be a mini Drink Me. So what I'm going to do with that is just adhere that to the top with my glue gun, like this. Next you will find a little French Fancy, and again you will have a little Eat Me sign. So I'm just going to again use my glue gun on here and attach that to my cake. Now finding the white lollipop stick. So at the moment we're just building everything just to sort of like sit into place. You will find some arrows. There'll be 3 of these. Just pop these out of the way. And then with these 3 arrows, I'm going to start gluing at the top again with my glue gun. So I'm just going to cover this top part here and inline that there. Do the next one along and then the next one. So it's definitely best to sort of pop these so your arrows are going one way, then the other, and then the other. And then glue these all onto your stick. Just make sure when you glue these, you just got a few mil at the end, obviously because when we're going to stick that into our frame. This is what your little stick should look like when everything is glued together. So this is going to go up here. Like I say, I'm going to place mine where I want these. You might want to do these down here. You might want it up there. So, just have a play about. I'm just going to give you some ideas along the way. So we're going to concentrate on this little table here. This is the first little biscuit out of your kit. I will be using my glue gun. Run that along this edge here. You can obviously use your tacky glue. However, because I am building this as we go, I don't want to keep waiting for everything to dry. So I'm going to put my glue gun on there and then stick it just on this edge part here. Next, I'm going to take this little Drink Me bottle. I'm just going to place this on this edge here. And then once I'm happy with the placement, so I just want it at an angle so it just sort of like comes out slightly, I'm going to pop some glue gun underneath that bottle and adhere that to my table. Next, you will find loads of different cards. So I'm just going to pick a random one. This is the 9 of Hearts. I'm just going to make a lip. So just fold this. Again, your design might be completely different to mine. I'm just giving you some ideas. I'm going to use my glue gun, just run it along there, and then I'm just going to pop this just inside this little gap here. I have then took a picture card and just rolled that underneath my shelf and attached it with the same method. That way it just sort of like fills in the gap. Like I say, it just depends on where your placements are. So all these cards and bits and pieces are great fillers. Next, I'm going to take my Eat Me, and I want it either on this top shelf or the bottom. I'm not quite sure. I'm just going to bend this label round that we stuck on earlier, just to give it a little bit of a ripple. I feel like it wants to go on the inside, just here, maybe at an angle, like this. So I'm happy with that placement, so I'm just going to use my glue gun and just glue that into place. Just pulled you a little bit closer. So now I'm going to take another playing card, and I'm just going to, again, just fold the edge here. And I just want this poking out this shelf here. Just to make the ripple effect on my card, I am not going to put any glue on the inside of these. It's going to be far too much trouble because you're going to get glue all over your print. So just take your card and squish it down and then pull it back up. And then I've just done exactly the same on the other side. So as you can see, I am using my cards just to fill out the gaps. And next, I'm just going to add a couple more bottles on the top. So you will have 3 of these pink bottles. So again, I'm just going to put these into place. You might have had this up here. You know, you might have had another bottle the other side. Like I said, you might want to put that up there. It's completely up to you, but this is the way I'm going to sort of like design this bottom part. So I'm going to add some glue gun on the bottom of these and then adhere these to my shelf. Everything is now drying and set into place. So the next part of your kit, you will find on your overspill, you've got a misprint here. This is where your first clock is going to go. So this is what your clock looks like. I'm going to use my glue gun for this because obviously it's quite heavy. So I would advise no tacky glue for this part. Pop some glue on the back of here. And then I'm going to place this over the top of my misprint. Next, I'm going to take the other little love heart card, just bend that, make some little flaps, and then it's going to be this card here. I'm just going to pop my glue gun along the little edges that I folded and then place that over the top. That's just going to give us a 3D effect. So I used this part as my guide and this one, and then I've gone along and just bent all the other cards and then added my clock to the bottom. Next we have this door print. So you will find this down the rabbit hole. It has been framed. So this is just sort of like going to sit out, just stop everything flat. So using your glue gun, or you can use some double-sided padded, I'm not quite sure what you call them, you know, the little padded sticks, just for that to sort of like sit out there. So let me just pop some glue on there. Line that up on my door. Because obviously I've used my glue gun, it will stand out a little bit more. So next you will see my random stick up here. So we did this earlier. You can have it here, you can have it over here. Ooh, let me move you along. I feel it's going to be best here. So what I'm going to do is just use my glue gun. So no tacky glues, because obviously we're going to adhere this to this grass. Pop that into place. You can then obviously bend your signs around, just make them sort of like rippled, like this. And then I'm going to place this in front of my spill here. That is now glued into place. So just we said earlier where I took out a colour, just see where your clock goes, you will find the other colour further down. So with your third clock, I'm going to place this over the top here. Obviously, if you've gone with your arrows on this side, it will obviously cover it. So your print will be the same on the other side. So you can take a card. It's completely up to you, but I'm going to use this clock. That's the way I've sort of like designed it. So I'm just going to pop my glue gun on the back. Cover my card where there's no white, and then I know that's where my clock needs to be. I've still got quite a lot of little cards, so what I'm going to do, like I've done with this part, I'm not going to add too many, but just a few, just to fill out the gaps. So I'm just going to maybe add 2 or 3, bend over the corners like this, just add some glue gun, and then just let these sort of like fall down just like this part as well. So I ended up adding 4 cards down the bottom. I've then just been working in my kit, so I've got the mushroom, the key, I've put on 2 little cups and saucers and a little drink me. I've done a bottle down here and then just folded these back parts just like we did with the cards and added those at the back. I've also added a little carrot and a little cake. And then I went ahead and painted my frame. So all this I didn't film because obviously you might want to put yours in different placements depending on what you've done on your shelf or if you've used some of your other charms. So this is the dark brown that I used. I just sort of like lightly went over my frame twice and it was the same colour that I used for this. That way it just saves me sort of like painting this, filming this and it being far too long. But now all my frame is dry, I'm going to carry on. So the next part I'm going to get out the kit is the little top hat, which is this. Again, you might want a cake on yours and you might want to put this somewhere else. And then you will also need to find the 10 and 6. So I'm going to show you how to mount the hat onto this little card, which I want to sit in on the middle of my table here. So taking your skewer, I'm just going to blob some glue gun just on the top of here. Then taking my hat, I'm going to place this just over the glue and then pop this at an angle on my stick. Now this might take, you know, a few seconds or so to dry depending on how much glue you've added onto that. So it should look something like this. Just to support the stick a little bit more, you just need to now pop your glue gun inside here and then just pop some glue over the top of this stick. So don't bring your glue too far down, just try and get it in there and then again just let that dry. So that's what it should look like inside. So now taking your card, you're just going to slide this and just sort of like place it first before we glue it. And the aim is to get a little bit of string, to get this card edge just sat on this skewer here. So that's going to go up inside my hat. Let me try and line it up just to show you. Like this, and then your stick will just measure up at the back. So there's a couple of ways to do this. You can either use a blob of your glue gun just on this corner and just poke it inside, and then you can use your tacky glue to stick the other on. Obviously flip it round and use your tacky glue, or you can also use your glue gun underneath your stick and just adhere that as well. Because obviously the placement of this, where it's going to go on my table, you are not going to see the back of this stick. So if you are mounting this somewhere else, you know, you might want it in the corner. You don't have to worry about covering this stick, because obviously it's going to get covered once you mount it onto the back piece. So I've just flipped my card up. I'm going to use my glue gun because it's obviously going to be quicker for me. I'm just going to run it straight down that edge there. So let me do that quick. Then I'm just going to line my card up to my stick and squish everything down. So if you are using tacky glue, you can use that method as well. Or like we said earlier, you can flip it over and then just run your tacky glue just underneath. I just find it easier just to sort of like peel back the card. So this is now what it should look like. So now I'm going to just trim this off with some scissors. Let me just flip you back up. So my card is going to sit on this table here. So I've just trimmed it off. I'm going to use my glue gun, just run it along this edge here. Line that up in place. Obviously the stick is going to support it as well, so it won't be so floppy. Oh, you've just gone out of focus. And I'm just going to place that so it's not flat, but just between my little cups here. My hat is now in place. So you will also find a little butterfly in your kit, which was part of the small, so you might have a few of these already. Your colour will be random. This is just a random one that I've got out of my bag, which is lemon. And I'm going to mount that on the side of my hat here. So the easiest way to do that is to pop your glue gun on your whatever charm you have chosen. Obviously you have this butterfly, but again you might want to put this somewhere else. Pop that on whatever charm you have chosen, and then pop that onto your hat. It's easier doing it that way than putting a blob of glue on there and then having to add your charm and then obviously being in the wrong place. So I'm just going to add my butterfly, and as you can see, that just finishes off the little hat perfectly. So now we're going to go back down to this part. I have been umming and ahhing about this part. I've tried a few methods. However, I've decided we're going to go for grass. So you'll see sort of like the lip here where the door that I designed joined. And I didn't like that. I felt like it sort of like had a bit of a gap. And at the bottom as well. So you will have excess when you cut off this grass part, what we did in the previous steps. But I will just add a little bit more grass in, just so you can add that as well, just in case you are wanting to do that. You might want ribbons, you might want to add moss, anything like that. So the little strips, bearing in mind, like we said before, this is fairly messy when you start cutting it. So just be aware when you cut this, again, to do it over your bin. And what you'll need to do is just measure just along here. Obviously I've cut this ahead of time. Fold your grass back and then cut it. Rather than going straight in and cutting it, fold your grass back and then trim it off. That way you're going to keep, you know, the majority of the grass. So what I want to do is I want to sit this on this lip here. Decide which way I want it. Probably this way blends in a little bit better. So again, depending on how much grass you've got in yours. I'm going to run my glue gun just along this edge here. It's going to make it easier. Normally I put my glue on here, but because I know the length of this already, and then I'm going to just stick that part just over that lip there. I am then going to take another strip and I'm going to place it in front of my door here, just so it sort of like blends everything together. So again, I've just measured that along. I'm going to use my glue gun, just run it along this edge here, and then push that onto my door. So now we just need to blend out this grass at the bottom, because obviously the back part is black. So I'm going to take the same acrylic paint, just dip in with my paintbrush, and then I'm going to tap this just over all this. One, it'll stop it being really shiny, and just tap that and just sort of like blend all the colour in. And do the same along the bottom if there's any bits and pieces that I need to cover. So I'll just film a few seconds for you. So I'm just dipping in with my brush. Don't worry about going on the grass, it just blends everything in, because obviously it's sort of like mud as well. Just keep dipping in with my paintbrush, take it over the grass, paint all the black, and you will see it will start sort of looking a lot more sort of blended. Obviously my paint's going to look shiny until it's dry. Just get another bit of string like this. Then I'm just going to do the same with the bottom. Don't worry as well if you go slightly above, you know, with your grass, if you want a little bit more brown going in there. Just use exactly the same method. Don't have to be really neat with this. Tapping it all the way along. So I'm just going to finish this bottom part and just let everything dry. So I just started adding all the little bits out of the kit. So I added the little 3 spray in this corner and added the little flower. I added the little pink sign over here. The table setting that we did earlier. Then I've added these 3 cards to the top. Obviously I didn't film me placing all these because obviously yours might be slightly different to mine. I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial. This is the finished result. Goodbye everybody.